My name is Emma. I live with my parents. I have a sister named Sophia. She's more beautiful and smarter than me, and our parents have always adored her. As for me, I've always been treated like I'm invisible by my parents. Ugh, hiding in your room again. You're such an idle youth. Don't think we'll be around forever, they would say to me. I never thought they'd be around forever, and I have my own thoughts and actions. But my parents have labeled me as a NEET and don't take me seriously. One day, my sister spoke to me. Poor thing, you're neither cute nor exceptionally talented. Don't you ever wonder what you're living for? I'm happy with my life, so don't say weird things. Oh well, do as you please, but let me tell you something great. Something great? What? I'm getting married to a very handsome and high-income man. Oh, that's good for you. Jealous? You must be. You'll never get married. My sister assumed I couldn't get married and kept bragging about herself. I'm not particularly interested in marriage, so whether I can get married or not doesn't matter to me. I was planning to attend my sister's wedding since she's family, but then... What? You're coming to my wedding? Yeah, is that a problem? Of course it's a problem. If a bottom-feeder idle youth like you comes, it'll ruin the ceremony. What's a bottom-feeder idle youth? A bottom-feeder idle youth is just that. You can't do anything. Completely useless. Why are you saying such horrible things? I just want to celebrate your wedding. I don't need your congratulations. Don't come. My sister despised me and repeatedly told me not to come. Mother and father also said that a bottom-feeder idle youth like me shouldn't come. But I thought it would be a problem for my sister if no family members were there, so I decided to attend. On the wedding day, as I was walking in my dress, father and mother found me. What are you doing here? We told you not to come to the wedding. My parents yelled at me. Hearing a commotion, my sister approached. Why is a bottom-feeder idle youth like you here? I didn't invite you. But if there's no family, it might look suspicious. I thought it would be better for you if I was here. Why are you thinking unnecessary things? Your existence is a secret to the other family, you know? What? You didn't know about the family dinner, did you? We didn't invite you. Why would you do something so cruel? Cruel? This is only natural. You'd just be in the way. If we said we have a bottom-feeder idle youth in our family, the marriage might be called off. That's why we didn't invite you. My sister laughed hysterically as she said this. My parents were smirking. The three of them had conspired together. Seeing their determination to erase my existence, I became deeply saddened. Get out, you useless bottom-feeder idle youth! My sister yelled at me with fury. I realized that nothing I said would matter to this family anymore. So I reluctantly decided to leave the venue. I'm going home then. Goodbye. My family pointed and laughed at me as I said this. Holding back my frustration, someone called out to me on the way. Boss, good work today. Good work? Wait, what are you wearing? Yes, I'm the one getting married. Didn't you know? What? Wait, how do you know Caleb? And what's this about being the boss? Sophia, this person is the president of my company. No way. you're the president?
President? What's your relationship with Sophia?
She's my sister.
What? Sophia is your sister? But I didn't see you at the family greeting.
Well, my sister didn't take me to the greeting.
Why would she do such a thing?
She thought I was a bottom feeder idle youth.
Sophia, is this true?
Caleb yelled at my sister. Wait, but she's always in her room, just staring at her computer. I never thought she was working, my sister said, trembling, but Caleb continued to be angry.
Don't joke around. The boss gives us precise instructions from home. She's a skilled executive.
Caleb's furious defense finally made my sister realize the gravity of what she had done. I didn't know. Emma, I'm sorry. I never thought. It's fine, sister. I understand what kind of person you are now. I'm going home, so I'll call the limousine. A limousine? A luxury car?
Boss, you're leaving?
Yes, it seems I'm not welcome here. As I said that, Caleb became very angry with my sister.
Hey, what are you doing, Sophia? How dare you speak to the boss like that?
But I didn't know. How can you blame me for not knowing?
Ignorance is no excuse. Boss, I apologize for Sophia's rudeness.
It's fine. She's my family, so you don't have to apologize.
No, I'll take responsibility and call off the marriage with Sophia.
What? Caleb, what are you saying?
Quiet. I can't forgive someone who disrespects the boss.
Caleb was angry, as if it were a personal affront to him. Why are you so angry? Yes, I said terrible things to Emma, but it's strange for you to be so angry about it.
You see, I owe the boss a lot.
Oh?
I kept changing jobs, and my work history was a mess. I couldn't get hired anywhere, and the only places left were companies that ignored workers' rights and welfare, forcing people to work in unfair conditions. Just when I was about to give up and take a job at one of those places, my application was accepted, and I got an interview at the boss's company.
Caleb was talking about when he first got hired at my company. It brings back memories. I remember that happening.
The boss said she wanted to see me, not my resume. After talking with me for a while, she understood who I was and hired me. The boss's company offers fair working conditions and values me properly. Meeting the boss changed my life.
Is that so? I didn't know. Wow, what a wonderful story. My sister was desperately trying to get on Caleb's good side. However, Caleb saw through her cunning plan and became even angrier.
It's obvious you're trying to win me over, but I have no intention of forgiving the disrespect you showed to the boss.
Caleb's genuine anger left my sister trembling. Please, don't cancel the wedding. Come on. Father and Mother, say something. My sister was trying to get help from Father and Mother, but Father and Mother were just cowering and didn't seem to want to help.
We didn't mean to blame Emma as much as Sophia did.
That's right. This is all your own doing. What? What will I do if the wedding is canceled? My sister was crying and screaming. Caleb calmly explained what would happen next.
If we cancel the wedding, there will be a cancellation fee. If we cancel on the same day, it will be 100%.
What? 100%? How much money is that?
Well, the total cost of the wedding was $30,000, so it would be $30,000.
What? I have to pay $30,000 even if it's canceled?
That's how cancellation fees work.
No way. Then we should just continue with the wedding.
Sorry, but I won't do that. I can't forgive what you said to the boss. And I expect you would continue to speak abusively if we got married. I can't live with someone so dangerous.
Dangerous? That's not true. I won't say anything mean to Emma from now on. Please marry me.
What do you think, boss?
Caleb turned to me, and I calmly replied. She's saying this now, but she's just saying what sounds good to get through this situation. If you get married, she'll surely start abusing you too, saying things like, "It's lazy not to do housework just because you're working." Or, "Being a homemaker is hard, so help with the chores."
I see. Then it's better to call off the marriage.
Hey, don't say such unnecessary things. I almost had him convinced.
Did you hear that? She said convinced. That's not a word you use with someone you're going to marry, is it? I think so. I think it's better to call off the marriage. I'll go change.
Caleb said that and walked away. Wait, don't go, Caleb. Emma, what are you doing? My wedding is ruined.
Don't blame me. It's your own fault. It's what you deserve.
My sister became even angrier at my words. If you hadn't come to the wedding venue in the first place, none of this would have happened. It's your fault. Take responsibility. Bring Caleb back right now.
I understand how you feel, but Caleb seems to have lost his will to marry. If you get married in this state, it will only be painful for both of you. I think it's better to call it off.
What should I do then? You heard the cancellation fee, right?
He said $30,000. That's a huge amount.
Yes, it is. Even if we split the cancellation fee, it's $15,000. No, if they say it's my fault, I might have to pay the whole amount.
Well, that's a possibility, but what can you do? You've done enough to deserve it.
Hey, I just said some harsh words. To cancel the wedding over that, it's too much.
Don't tell me. It's Caleb's decision.
Hey, Father, Mother, say something.
When my sister turned to our parents, they suddenly became very friendly towards me. Wow, I never knew Emma had become a boss.
Oh my, as a mother, I'm so proud.
No, I always believed in Emma. She's a real go-getter. From now on, let's live relying on Emma's money.
Father and Mother said that. Relying on my money? You must be joking. They had also been verbally abusive to me, so I didn't want to spend money on them. Sorry, but I don't want to live with my family anymore. I'm going home now to look for an apartment to live alone.
What? Why? We've been living together all this time. Why suddenly live alone?
I lived with you because I believed in something called family bonds. I thought that if we lived together, you might understand my job someday. But the result was different. You never understood my job and even insulted me. And now you want to rely on my money? Would you want to live with such people?
I understand. I'm sorry.
From now on, I'll cherish you. Please continue living with us, okay? I said no, didn't I? I don't want to live with you anymore. Even though I said that, Father and Mother kept insisting.
What if we kick Sophia out of the house? Then you'll live with us, right?
What? Wait, Father, what are you saying?
Shut up. I was a fool to expect anything from you. We'd be better off living with Emma than with you.
It was the moment Father abandoned my sister. As a family member, I didn't want to witness such a cruel moment. Father, just so you know, I hate people who abandon others so easily the most.
What? What are you saying?
People like that will eventually flip-flop on me too, so I can't live with them.
No way.
Hey, you stupid husband, what are you doing failing to lure her in?
Shut up.
While Father and Mother were arguing, Caleb returned, now dressed in casual clothes.
What's going on? You still fighting?
Caleb, I can't believe you really went to change.
I told you I would, didn't I? What are you talking about?
Are you really going to call off the wedding? I hate this. Why is this happening?
Yeah, just so you know, you're the cause, so you'll have to bear the full cancellation fee. I've already talked to our parents about it.
What? That's terrible. It's not just my fault, is it?
Sis, no matter how you look at it, it's your fault.
Hey, you be quiet.
How dare you tell the boss to be quiet? I won't tolerate any more insults to the boss.
Wait, please wait.
Boss, have you called the limo yet?
No, I got caught up in talking and forgot to call.
Then I'll call it. I need to go home too.
With that, Caleb started making the call. Wait a minute. Please reconsider.
Reconsider? What's going to change? I don't love you anymore, you know?
Don't say that. It was my fault. I promise I won't say anything terrible to Emma again.
We've had this conversation many times. Enough already. Boss, I've called the limo. It'll be here soon.
Then let's wait outside. I'll go change too.
Wait, Emma, let's talk.
There's nothing to talk about.
Wait, Emma, Father and Mother are begging too. Without you, we'll have to rely on Sophia's money.
But Sophia will pay the cancellation fee and run out of money. We won't be able to live properly. Father, Mother, if you need money, why don't you get a part-time job or something? No way, I don't want to work at this age. It's okay, there are still people working, even in their 70s. And Father and Mother are still in their 60s, right? You're still energetic.
That's not the problem. My body is heavy, and it's hard to move. And you're telling me to work?
Yes.
No way.
Are we done here? I'm going to change, so don't talk to me anymore. After I get home, I'll pack my bags and stay at a hotel for now. I have no intention of dealing with you ever again.
Hey, wait. Wait for me. Please don't go.
Don't abandon us, Emma! My sister and parents were screaming, but I quickly changed and left the venue. Afterward, I rode home in the limo Caleb called, packed my bags, and headed to a hotel. I looked up apartments at the hotel, signed a lease right away, and completely cut ties with my family. Sophie ended up having to pay the $30,000 wedding cancellation fee. And my parents were so angry that they disowned her. In the end, my parents ran out of money and both had to work part-time. Sophia, having nowhere else to go after being disowned, began living as a gig worker. I continued to grow my company, increase my income, and lived happily ever after.
Get over here now and pick up the old hag we kicked out of our house because we want nothing to do with her.
About a month after my father's funeral, I received an unexpected call from Jackson. He had kicked my mother out of the house and demanded that I take care of her from now on. I was taken aback, unable to comprehend the situation immediately. You're joking, right? You didn't actually kick Mom out of the house.
Come see for yourself. Oh, and I let her take Dad's memorial tablet.
Why would you do something so cruel?
I have no use for Mom now that we can't get Dad's inheritance. She's just a poor burden, isn't she?
I was shocked. Apparently, my late father had debts, and after paying them off, there was no inheritance left. This was news to me. Even worse, Jackson and his wife had been living in the family home all this time. It was outrageous.
It's getting dark soon. If you don't come to pick her up, Mom will be sleeping on the streets.
How could you be so cruel? I will never forgive you for this, Jackson.
I don't need your forgiveness, ha ha ha.
That's just too harsh. Jackson hung up without hearing me out, and subsequent calls went unanswered. When I managed to reach my mother, she confirmed that everything Jackson had said was true. Angry at Jackson and worried for my mother, I had no choice but to drive over to where she was. I am Lily, a 27-year-old woman in a hurry. 3 years ago, I married Mason, who is the same age as me, and we've been living together since. At the beginning of our marriage, we lived with my parents in the family home. But 2 years ago, Jackson and his wife abruptly moved in. They said our presence was making the place crowded and we were forced to leave. My older brother Jackson, 8 years my senior, has always been selfish, but his marriage seems to have enhanced that trait. Our family home, where I was born and raised, is a spacious mansion, inherited from my grandfather with extensive land. There should be no discomfort in living together. I was not satisfied with the situation and urged with Jackson, but my husband, who hates conflicts, urged us to leave. Around that time, my father was diagnosed with cirrhosis of the liver, which had already significantly worsened. I wanted to spend his last moments with him, but that didn't happen. The disease rapidly consumed my father, and he passed away a month ago. My heart ached knowing that my mother must be in much more pain than I was. To have my own brother treat us this way, amidst all the fresh sorrow, it was pitiful. What would happen next was truly a shock. An hour later, when we arrived at our family home, my mom was sitting desolate on a suitcase in the garden. The front door was locked. Jackson, she said, had taken her keys. Using my set of keys, I unlocked the door and walked in with my mom. Jackson and Olivia were sprawled on the sofa, nonchalantly watching TV. Is this some kind of joke?
Huh? How did you get in?
I used my key to open the front door. Isn't it obvious?
Ugh, slipped my mind. Leave your key, take the old lady, and go.
This isn't funny. How can you be watching TV after kicking your own mother out of the house? Besides, if the house remained, even after Dad's debts were paid off, Mom has a right to live here.
Huh? What are you talking about?
Infuriated by Jackson's dismissive attitude, I stood in front of the TV. Mom has a right to inherit this house. If you can't live with her, you should be the one to leave, Jackson.
Shut up. This house is mine. Dad gave it to me when he was alive. Don't act smart without knowing anything.
What? What do you mean? There's no way Dad gave this house to you, Jackson, before he died. Mom also looked puzzled, shaking her head. In the face of our confusion, Jackson smirked and got up from the sofa, bringing out an envelope from a room in the back.
Look at this.
What's this?
It's proof that I inherited this house.
The envelope contained documents proving the inheritance, prepared by a judicial scrivener, and his real estate ownership certificate. He said that the property had been transferred to his name a month before Dad passed away. Mom and I were shocked as we looked at the documents. Why would Dad do something like this? Asking a departed person doesn't yield an answer. I sighed, looking at his picture. Why would Dad hand over the house to Jackson without discussing it with Mom?
Because I'm his favorite, of course. I told him that Mom would take the house once he passed away, so he gave it to me while he was still alive.
That can't be. I can't believe it.
Open your eyes and face the reality.
No matter how many times we checked the documents, the property was in Jackson's name. All this just for a house? My mom muttered in disbelief. Is there no other inheritance? Nothing left for Mom?
Nothing. Be glad that the debts are cleared.
This can't be real.
You're not just worrying about Mom. You realize there's no inheritance for you either, right?
The bank card he handed over contained only a few dollars. I wasn't after Dad's inheritance, but it was a shock to learn that he had left me nothing. This is too cruel. And to add insult to injury, Olivia was laughing her heart out seeing our dejection.
Now get lost. You poor people have no business here.
Jackson and Olivia forcibly drove us out of the house. Ouch, that hurts. Mom had fallen and scraped her palm when they pushed us out. blood was seeping from the wound. As I wrapped her hand in my handkerchief, tears of frustration welled up and fell. My mother, seeing me like this, gently wiped my tears, her eyes filled with sorrow as well. "Mom, our place is small, but come stay with us." "But I don't want to impose on Mason. I'll find somewhere else to stay, don't worry." "I just can't leave you like this. I'm going to call Mason right now, just wait." Wiping my tears, I grabbed my cell phone and dialed my husband. From the other end of the line, I heard Mason's voice.
Hello?
"Mason, I'm sorry for calling out of the blue. My mom has been kicked out of her house." As I explained the situation to my surprised husband, he hummed in understanding, though he seemed a bit hesitant. I held my breath waiting for Mason's response.
Our apartment is pretty cramped compared to Mom's house. It might not be the most comfortable.
"Yeah, our place is tiny."
But I don't mind. Bring your mom over. We've had times where we were taken care of at home too. In times of trouble, we should help each other out.
"Mason, thank you so much." My husband is a kind man with a big heart. He could never leave someone in need. Quickly, we took Mom to our apartment, and from that day on, we lived together. However, living with 3 people in our small apartment was certainly cramped. We don't have enough savings to buy a house yet, but should we move to a slightly larger place?
That might be good. I feel bad for your mom in this small space.
As my husband and I were searching for properties on the computer, my mom's cell phone rang. After a while, she hung up the phone and said something we never could have imagined. "Why don't we live in my Highlands condominium?"
Wait, what?
"Highlands condominium?" "Yes. What do you mean?" My mother began to explain, to our surprise. Apparently, my grandfather, who was a wealthy man, was quite a spendthrift and spent all the money he made in a day on that day. In order to deal with his constant borrowing, my grandmother had no choice but to sell off their farmland and make ends meet. According to my mom, my father was also a big spender. "But we don't have any assets other than the house we lived in, so I was really worried about our future. That's why I invested in real estate with the money I earned when I was working before I got married." My husband and I were absolutely stunned. It turns out, in addition to the Highlands condominium, my mom was also managing an apartment building and had made a significant amount of money from her real estate investments. I can't even comprehend this. It's too amazing. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you. Anyway, I just got a call from the management company that there's a vacancy in the Highlands condominium. We can move in next month. What do you think?" There was no reason to refuse such a generous offer. Plus, it was a Highlands condominium with 3 bedrooms, a living room, a dining room, and a kitchen, located just a 5-minute walk from the station, which was much more comfortable than our current situation. "Thank you, Mom, but we may only be able to pay as much rent as we are for the apartment." "You don't need to worry about that." "No way. We have to do this properly, even if we're family." "Oh, I need to tell the landlord that we're moving out." Looking at my husband and I beaming with joy, my mother's face brightens too. Time flew by as we busied ourselves preparing to move in. Before we knew it, we had spent 2 months living in our new home, Highlands condominium. As I was about to head out for some shopping, I was taken aback when the Jackson couple suddenly appeared in front of the condominium entrance.
Why are you, a pauper, living in Highlands condominium? Did you hit the jackpot or something?
Of course not. Highlands condominium has always belonged to my mom. Jackson and Olivia were both taken aback.
What?
They exclaim in unison, looking at the towering condominium. I couldn't help but burst into laughter at their confused and goofy expressions. Jackson, his face flushing red, began to seethe with anger.
That wretched woman! I can't believe she was hiding this from us while pretending to be poor.
My mom never said she was poor. You just assumed it, Jackson. Plus, she inherited a large house. What's wrong with that?
That's not the point.
Don't yell here. It's disrespectful to the other residents. Besides, how did you know I was here? Jackson said that when he couldn't reach my mother, he tracked her down using her mobile phone's location. Why are you trying to contact Mom now after kicking her out? I bet it's something nasty again.
Regardless, if Mom is here, I want to see her. Let me in, now.
You must be joking. If you hurt Mom again, I couldn't bear it. If you have something to say, you can tell me. But they kept insisting on seeing my mother, without revealing why. The Jackson couple seemed rather flustered. Weren't you living comfortably in your huge family house, just the two of you?
It's none of your business.
Fine, if you don't want to tell me, that's okay. I have to go now. Bye. As I tried to walk past the Jackson couple, Jackson suddenly grabbed my arm tightly. Ouch, let me go.
Just call Mom.
Absolutely not. I'll call the police. But Jackson just scoffed at me, as if looking down on me.
There's no way the police would come for a simple family argument. Even if they did, there's no way you could sue me for just grabbing your arm.
I suppose you're right. It was true. Calling the police over something so minor might not only be futile, but also disruptive to others. I felt bad and ended up not saying anything. Fine, I'll tell my mom, but only if you tell me why you're here.
The utility bills for that house are ridiculous. Just for the AC, the electric bill is $500. This is no joke.
Their old, traditional-style house had more than 8 rooms, so it was no surprise that utility costs were high. But even so, a $500 electricity bill seemed a little steep. It was a particularly hot summer, so they probably overused the AC. I thought you would have known that from the start.
How would we have known? Mom used to pay the bills.
Jackson scratched his head frantically as Olivia fumed. There's no way we would have known. Do you know the property tax for that house is $5,000 a year?
What?
I can't believe you didn't know.
Why would an old house like that cost so much? How are we supposed to pay that?
Our house is old and has a large yard, so it's only natural that it would cost a lot to maintain. I also pointed out a reality to the Jacksons that they might not have realized. And you know, apparently it costs more in taxes to give away property while you're alive than after you pass away. This is going to be tough going forward.
Wait, is that true?
I see you didn't know. I told them this was all true, information I had heard from my mom, and the color drained from the Jacksons' faces. Seeing the stunned Jacksons, Olivia burst out in anger, saying, "It's your fault for not doing your homework!" And they started fighting right in front of me.
After all the trouble we went through to get Dad to change the name on the house, this is too much.
That's what you get for doing something so underhanded.
But even Dad said clearly that it would be better to give it to me than to your mom.
I can't believe it. I was shocked and fell silent, realizing that my father had disregarded my mom and me. Then, seizing the moment, Jackson made an outrageous request.
You can have the house. Let's exchange it for this Highlands condominium.
What are you talking about? This isn't mine, it belongs to Mom.
Please, talk to Mom for me. I beg you.
I promise to pass on your message, nothing more.
What the hell is that supposed to mean?
Feeling ridiculous for even engaging with them, I gave up on shopping and started to head back into the Highlands condominium through the entrance, but the Jacksons tried to follow me in. Their audacity left me speechless. I'll sue you for trespassing.
You just told us that wouldn't be a legal issue.
It seems like they won't get the message until they suffer a real consequence. Exasperated, I called out to the management office next to the entrance. Excuse me, could you please call the security? Someone who's not a resident of the Highlands condominium is trying to force their way in.
What? Wait a minute.
The security guard, who was on standby 24/7 at the Highlands condominium, came running immediately. With the large security guard in front of them, the two of them were startled. and I warned them once again to avoid the same thing happening in the future. I didn't call the police just now because you only grabbed my arm, but if you try to use force or enter the Highlands condominium again, I will really call the police, okay?
We beg you, don't do that.
If I even catch a glimpse of you, I'll report it. So go back to your mansion that you got from Dad. Got it? Apparently scared of the police, the Jacksons hastily retreated. I went back to my apartment and told my mother about the exchange with the Jacksons. But why did Dad let Jackson inherit the house? As I was feeling downcast, my mom smiled. Dad must have known what he was doing when he let Jackson inherit. He didn't want to burden me or you, Lily. Even though Dad was indifferent about money, he cared for me a lot. Of course, he always said he loved you, Lily, so much. Really? I was overjoyed to hear that my father felt that way about me. When my mom heard about the inheritance from Jackson, she muttered, "Are you going this far?" Because she realized that he had given a severe punishment to Jackson, who was always self-centered. You knew how Dad felt, Mom. Of course, dear. We've been together for 38 years. I know what he's thinking without him saying a word. Besides, Jackson never took care of Dad when he was sick. I was under the impression that the Jacksons were looking after my father. However, it turns out they hardly ever visited him, not at home and barely in the hospital. When I visited my dad, he would often tell me,
Jackson comes to see me, and you have your job to attend to, Lily. There's no need for you to go out of your way.
I took his words to heart, not realizing that it was a gentle lie meant to ease my worries. I had it all wrong about Dad. I feel awful. I want to apologize. Don't fret, Lily. Your feelings are reaching Dad in heaven. The ones who should worry are the Jacksons. Who these days would buy a big, high-maintenance house like that? I bet they'll struggle to find a buyer. Ha ha. The truth in my mom's mischievously gleeful words became evident after a while. The Jacksons, unable to maintain the house on their own, had put it up for sale but couldn't find a buyer. They continued to live in it even a year later. In the midst of all this, Olivia accidentally started a grease fire while cooking chicken, and the house quickly burned down. And since they didn't have money for fire insurance, their life is going to get even tougher. While I understand their predicament, it doesn't concern me. Apparently, the Jacksons are now camping out in the burned-down remains of their house. Living in the Highlands condominium is absolutely fantastic, and I can only feel gratitude toward my mother. I've been paying my mom rent every month, but it seems she's been saving it all to ensure we won't face hardship in the future. Every day is filled with peace and happiness as I live with my incredible mother and kind husband. As I visited my father's grave, I vowed to him that I would continue to repay my mother's kindness.
Family trips are more enjoyable without the daughter-in-law. She's just in the way. From the window of the speeding car, my mother-in-law looked down on me with a mocking smile. It all started on the first day of a family vacation with my husband's family. On the way to a luxury hotel, we stopped at a highway gas station, and suddenly I was left behind all alone. I was completely lost and stood frozen on the spot, a moment I'll never forget. My name is Susan. I'm 30 years old, and I focus on housework, not working outside the home. My husband, Thomas, is a management consultant and often away from home. Since I spend a lot of time alone and my husband has been covering all of mother-in-law's living expenses since my father-in-law passed away, we decided to live with her in our home. Mother-in-law was thrilled that her only son was moving back home, but she seemed displeased that I, his wife, was coming along. I'm not glamorous, and I have no interest in designer brands. I do a lot of water-related chores, so even with care, my hands get rough, and I choose clothes that are easy to move in. To mother-in-law, I seemed like an embarrassing daughter-in-law to show others. Mother-in-law, Linda, has always been a show-off, obsessed with appearance and brands. She's long since spent her grandfather's inheritance and her savings, but she has no intention of changing her luxurious lifestyle, always begging my husband for more. My husband always firmly refused, saying, "I'm giving you living expenses, not money for luxuries." But mother-in-law never gave up, always causing trouble. Furthermore, my sister-in-law and her husband live nearby. Sister-in-law, Jessica, has the same character as her mother, always making snide remarks like, "Thomas could do better than a plain woman like you." She comes to our house every day, demanding meals, baths, and drinks, but never contributes money or helps with chores. "You're Thomas's wife, so it's only natural that you do all the housework. You're not good-looking, so at least keep the house clean. Thomas is too kind. Susan has always been poor and doesn't understand anything about brands, right?" Yet mother-in-law would tell my husband, "I do all the housework myself." And sister-in-law would claim, "We're good friends." I've been working in customer service, so I've been using that experience to avoid major conflicts with mother-in-law and sister-in-law for the past few years. But my husband noticed everything, from me doing all the housework to sister-in-law's terrible attitude, but he didn't confront them directly because I asked him not to. I wanted to avoid a complete breakdown with my husband's family, no matter what they did to me. My husband respected my feelings. "But you don't have to push yourself too hard. I'm okay with cutting ties and living separately." "Thank you, but I want to try a little harder. So I'm thinking of planning a family trip to improve our relationship. What do you think?" "That sounds good. I can take time off next month, so let's all go on this year's trip." Since we were dating, my husband and I have been traveling regularly. Even after moving in with my mother-in-law, my husband and I enjoy occasional trips just for the two of us. But once mother-in-law and my sister-in-law realized we were staying at luxury and famous hotels, they insisted on coming along. "You two are so heartless, going on luxurious trips without us. From now on, take us with you and make sure it's extravagant." Because they were so persistent, I told them that this time we had booked a luxurious hotel for the whole family, including sister-in-law's husband. Mother-in-law and sister-in-law were thrilled. But just before the trip, my husband's work made it impossible for him to join us. I thought about postponing the trip, but mother-in-law had already bragged to the neighbors about the souvenirs, so she insisted we couldn't change the plans now. Reluctantly, I agreed to go with the four of us, excluding my husband. On the day, I put mother-in-law and sister-in-law's luggage in the trunk, and since there was no room left, I carried my travel bag inside the car. Throughout the drive, mother-in-law and sister-in-law kept making snide remarks from the back seat. Feeling fed up, I glanced at the empty passenger seat where only my travel bag sat, and I began to feel a little uneasy without my husband. Even as I drove onto the highway, mother-in-law's complaints never stopped. "You're driving so slowly. Are you just careless because Thomas isn't here? Really? There was an accident today, so..." "You're just good at making excuses. You must have deceived Thomas the same way." "I didn't deceive anyone." "If only slow Susan weren't here, this trip would be more fun, right, Mom?" "Yes, indeed." Eventually, as we were about to arrive at yet another gas station, sister-in-law surprisingly suggested, "Let my husband drive the rest of the way. You must be tired, Susan." Having been forced to prepare mother-in-law's luggage and clean the house before our early departure, I was exhausted and agreed. "Susan, could you buy drinks for everyone?" As I got out of the car to switch drivers, mother-in-law gave me a friendly smile, unlike her usual self. "Sure, that's fine." Mother-in-law and sister-in-law were unusually kind. Maybe they want to improve our relationship just like I do. That's good. I felt relieved and was about to walk away from the car when suddenly the engine started. And mother-in-law threw my luggage out of the car, Then mother-in-law yelled at me with a big smile. Family trips are more enjoyable without the daughter-in-law. You're just in the way. I stood there, watching the car drive away, leaving me and my travel bag behind. I was completely lost and stood still for a moment. I will never forget the words mother-in-law said to me at that moment. Finally, I realized that no matter how much I did for mother-in-law and sister-in-law, it was all in vain. Reaching for my travel bag left in the parking space, my vision suddenly blurred. Surprised, I ran to the restroom, covering my eyes with a hand towel, and tears began to flow uncontrollably. I don't remember how long I was there, but I noticed a call on my mobile phone and checked the message. It was from my husband, who had finished work early, expressing concern about the trip with mother-in-law and the others. While I was reading the message, my husband called. "Thomas, I'm alone at a highway gas station right now." "What? What happened?" Hearing his voice, I couldn't help but cry again. He patiently listened to my explanation without rushing me. "I'm really sorry that Mom and the others did this to you. I'll come pick you up right away." "I'm sorry this happened." "Why are you apologizing, Susan?" "Because I wanted to get along with your precious family, and I couldn't." "I want you to tell me how you really feel. Do you still want to try to make things work with Mom and the others?" "Right now, I can only think that it's too difficult." "I see. I'm sorry for what my family did. I'll handle the separation and everything else with Mom and the others. But is it okay for you to leave your feelings as they are?" "My feelings?" "You've been holding back for me all this time, haven't you?" Thinking back, I realized that I had always been holding back. But I had been angry with my unreasonable mother-in-law and insensitive sister-in-law all this time. Yes, I can't be with those people. I absolutely hate it. Expressing the anger I had been suppressing felt surprisingly refreshing. "You can do whatever you want from now on, Susan. I'll take care of the rest." "I understand. No matter what happens, I won't let them anymore." I made that firm resolution. A few hours later, my husband came to pick me up at the gas station. Being with him made me naturally smile, and I realized how calmly and happily we could spend time together, even though we were traveling the same distance. I couldn't help but grin a little, even though I felt bad for my worried husband. Thanks to his thoughtful care, I was able to rest well when we got home. The next day, my husband made a surprising proposal. "I've narrowed down the options for our new home to places near Susan's parents' house." "What? What's going on all of a sudden?" "I want to make sure we're not bothered by Mom and the others, so let's finish moving during the 3 days of the trip. Will it be difficult for you to move, Susan?" My careful and planned husband would never do something so sudden. I felt that he was quite angry inside, but he had a lovely smile for me. "I'm all for moving. Let's get started right away." We quickly found a new home and moving company, and we were able to move without any problems. During this time, I received several emails from mother-in-law and the others. "We're having the best trip without you. The hotel is luxurious and wonderful. Make sure it's at this level next time. Dinner was the most extravagant and delicious ever. It's even more fun without seeing Susan's ugly face. Traveling with just the family is so much more relaxing. The jacuzzi is amazing." Their enjoyment of the luxurious time at the high-end hotel came through clearly. Enjoy it while you can. I was looking forward to what would happen next. At around 10 a.m. on the checkout day, as expected, I received a call from mother-in-law. "Susan, what's going on?" "What do you mean?" "They told me the accommodation fee is for $100,000 if the young lady isn't there. It's completely different from what you told us at first." "It's only natural that the regular accommodation fee applies since I booked it through my connections and I'm not there." "What do you mean?" "That hotel is run by my relatives." "What?" "That's why we were able to stay at a special rate." "Well, I didn't know that." By the way, All the hotels we've stayed at on our trips were run by those relatives, so we were able to stay at a discount. Susan, you've never told us that before. Thomas told me to keep quiet about it because if Linda and the others found out, they'd demand it be free. What's that? Anyway, the accommodation fee is correct, so please pay it yourself. Wait a minute, I can't pay $100,000. I didn't go on the trip, so I can't pay for you all. Don't say that, do something, we're family, right? You said the wife of your son isn't family, didn't you? You all enjoyed yourselves as a family, so please pay as a family. Goodbye. I ignored mother-in-law, who was still yelling on the other end of the phone, and hung up, feeling refreshed. In the end, mother-in-law and the others borrowed money from a shady source to pay for the accommodation or something like that. Furthermore, when they returned home, they couldn't get living expenses from my husband or me since we had moved, and they ended up fighting and parting ways with sister-in-law's family. Sister-in-law's family also deteriorated their relationship and divorced. Sister-in-law, abandoned by her husband and without income, looked for work in the nightlife, but seemed to have trouble finding employment due to her bad personality. With no one left to rely on, mother-in-law even went to my husband's company to seek help. At that time, mother-in-law looked older than her age, with hollow eyes, a haggard face, and dirty clothes. Even when she was crying and begging in the company lobby to live with us, my husband firmly declared a break in relations. After that, mother-in-law ended up working exhaustively at a terrible live-in job. Several years have passed, and now we have a lovely child and are living very happily. We are planning to stay at that luxury hotel we couldn't go to before, just the three of us, as a family. The hotel owner's relative invited us because they want to meet our child. We are looking forward to it very much.
My husband changed after his company got on track. He didn't even try to hide that he was cheating with another woman. When I finally pointed it out, he just laughed at me.
You're trash that doesn't earn a cent. You should just be grateful I'm supporting you.
Then I'll get a job. When I said that, he just laughed and told me to do as I pleased. I found employment at my husband's parent company. That's when I started my revenge on my husband. My name is Karen, a 34-year-old homemaker, and my husband Michael is 36 and runs a printing company. We originally worked at the same company. I was in the illustration department and he was in sales. We fell in love and married when I was 26. Once we were settled, he quit his job and consulted with me about starting a new company. I was unsure, so I decided to consult with our business partner, Bob, whom we had worked with before. Bob was a CEO we knew from our previous workplace. He's involved in various businesses and often handled advertising for the products his companies made. Bob supported our challenge and even invested money.
I'm a fan of Karen's illustrations,
he said. I couldn't find words other than gratitude. We will definitely make our company a success, just the two of us, I declared to Bob. And the two of us started running the company. Initially, we struggled, living in a small apartment, but once the company took off, we could move into a high-rise condominium. That's when my husband asked me to focus on being a homemaker.
I'll hire someone else for the illustrations eventually. I want you to support me.
I couldn't say no to that. I decided to report the matter to Bob, who had invested in us. I'm sorry, but I'll have to quit the illustration work. Bob genuinely felt sorry for me.
So it's sad to think I won't be able to see Karen's illustrations anymore. But if you ever want to start again, just tell me. I'll be here to support you.
Yes, thank you very much. And so I became a homemaker to support my husband. But since I love drawing, I now upload my illustrations as a hobby to Instagram. The response has been great, and this has become my secret pleasure. My husband's company continues to thrive since I left. Our lifestyle has become more prosperous accordingly.
My husband has bought a new car, and he's even had suits custom made by renowned brands. I thought it was an unnecessary expense, but I guess appearance matters when you're the boss. No matter how busy my husband is, he always has dinner at home, because this was a promise between us. No matter how busy we get, he insisted we always have time just for the two of us. This was our dinner time. That's when he would share the company's future prospects with me. I felt happy just being able to support his dreams. I thought this would go on forever. The company's performance is still on the rise, but gradually I noticed a change in my husband's attitude. He stopped talking to me about the company during dinner. "How's the company doing? Everything fine?" "Yeah," he would reply unenthusiastically. I asked persistently to know more, and he snapped back. "Don't talk about it. You won't understand. You're always at home. Don't make me explain every little thing." I was shocked that my husband would say such a thing. I tried to convince myself that he was just tired and overworked. That night, he silently finished his meal and went straight to his room. This continued for a while, and then he started having dinner outside. He would send excuses about socializing or entertaining, but he used to have dinner at home even then. I would wait for him, holding off on dinner myself, and yet now he would casually dine out. Lately, he wouldn't even send an excuse via email. When I brought it up, he would just yell at me. He seemed like a completely changed person. I felt nothing more than a servant to my husband. I would break into tears at the thought. When we started the company, we endured hard times hand in hand. Now I feel lower than his subordinates. I don't do housework because I like it. I wanted to continue my work in illustration. But more than that, I wanted to make my husband's dreams come true. That's why I've supported him with housework. But any gratitude for that has long since vanished from my husband. While he's away, I immerse myself in my illustrations. That's the only thing that relieves my stress. As I continue, my followers increase, and there are kind words in the comments. Among them, I even found Bob's name. In the comments, Bob offers to work together again. I hope we can work together someday. Just thinking about it lifts my spirits. Without this hope, I might not have been able to go on. Ever since we stopped having dinner together, a rift began to grow between my husband and me. Eventually, I started to sense the presence of another woman. I detected a scent of perfume on my husband's discarded suit jacket, a fragrance he would never use. When I questioned him about it, he brushed it off, saying it must have come from an acquaintance. He did so with a smirk, acting as if being caught wouldn't be a problem at all. For the first time, my long-standing sadness towards my husband turned to anger. I thought, enough with the mockery. I was left alone at home, waiting for my husband, unable to do anything but household chores. The anxiety of being left behind by society grew day by day. My friends only told me how envious they were. When I consulted my parents, they just laughed, calling it a luxurious worry. I had to face this problem all by myself. Then one day my husband came home drunk. I took care of him desperately and put him to bed. That's when I noticed a lipstick mark on his shirt. There's no way he'd come home with a kiss mark there for no reason. It was a declaration of war from the other woman. I had finally caught proof of my husband's infidelity. The next day, I showed him the shirt and confronted him. "Where were you last night? What's this kiss mark?" My husband was surprised by the kiss mark, but was unfazed by my confrontation. "I was out at a bar with friends. Must have happened then." "Right there. You'd have to take off your jacket for that to happen. Didn't you notice?" "I said I don't remember." My husband stood up and slapped my cheek. I fell backward, unable to comprehend what had happened. All I felt was a hot, stinging pain. When will you get it? Who do you think's providing for us? My husband said that and went back to his room. I watched his back, tears spilling down my face. My husband had changed. He no longer loved me. I was shattered by the harsh reality. From then on, my husband became violent whenever something displeased him. If he didn't like the meal I'd prepared, he'd throw the plate on the floor. This tastes awful. Do you even know what I eat every day? If you want to stay my wife, you better improve your cooking skills. My husband said that and got up to leave the room. I'll eat out. If I eat this, it'll affect my work. I chased after my husband. Wait, I want to cook what you like, but you never come home or talk to me. How can I make something delicious like that? My husband clicked his tongue, clearly annoyed by my desperate plea. So, shall we get a divorce then? I'm totally fine with it. I can live without you, but you can't live without me, can you? My husband looked at me and smirked. You're a piece of garbage that doesn't make a single cent, and you're a parasite living off me. With those words, something inside me snapped. This man will never change. The kind and considerate husband of the past is dead. Then I'll get a job. What? What do you mean? I will also become financially independent. My husband laughed, clutching his stomach. Who would hire a powerless person like you? I held back my anger. I mustn't lose control and lash out. That would only lead to more physical abuse. Since I can't win through physical strength, I must find another way to fight. Well, do as you please, but don't neglect the housework with your insignificant earnings. I won't allow that. My husband said those words and left the house. I immediately began preparing. By hiring a detective to catch evidence of my husband's infidelity, I easily obtained numerous photographs. My husband was seen with flashy dressed women, enjoying drinks together and entering hotels. And it wasn't just one woman. He was baiting women with money and playing around with different ones. Seeing those photos and hearing the detective's report, I felt no emotions. No anger, no sadness. Rather, I thought it was good that the flashy behavior made it easy to obtain evidence. 1 week after obtaining the evidence, I headed to a restaurant on the top floor of a hotel. I was wearing the most beautiful clothes I could find, but I looked overwhelmingly cheap compared to the other customers in this restaurant. As I timidly headed to the reserved seat, Bob was already seated. I'm sorry to keep you waiting. I apologized, and Bob smiled, gesturing for me to sit. No, I've been eagerly waiting for you, Karen. Making me wait isn't a big deal at all. Bob had helped fund us when my husband and I went independent. He was also now the president of my husband's parent company. Thank you so much for supporting us during our independence. I was surprised when you said you two were going independent, but since I had been working with you for a long time, funding you was no big deal. It seems the company is doing well thanks to you. Bob's face turned stern at my words. Well, that's true, I guess, but today it's about you accepting my invitation, right? Bob said, smiling and reassuring me. Yes, please. I straightened up and greeted him. Bob was one of the people who highly praised my illustrations. He provided funding when we went independent because I was part of it. He was the only one who advised me not to become a homemaker. We had lost touch, but he found me on social media and left a comment. We began communicating through email and SMS. But you understood my illustrations well, didn't you? I'm a fan of yours, and I'm really glad you didn't quit illustrating. I never thought you'd scout me, though. Bob had offered to hire me as an illustrator via SMS. It was quite some time ago, and I had declined because of my household chores. But he kept inviting me time and again.
It was a week ago when I decided to accept Bob's offer during a conversation with my husband. Bob seemed hesitant, but finally, he looked me straight in the eyes.
I don't want to say this, but Michael's company has a really bad reputation.
What? Really? Everything I heard from my husband about his job was positive, so I was surprised to hear this from Bob.
I've been working with him for a long time, but ever since the business started growing, the quality of work has declined. Deadlines are missed, mistakes are made, and he doesn't seem to reflect on it.
Is this reputation widespread?
Well, his company was growing rapidly, so it drew attention, but now it's attracting the wrong kind of attention. There are even rumors of him associating with a bad group.
I didn't know that. I realized I didn't know much about my husband. To lighten the mood, Bob said cheerfully,
Anyway, you'll be drawing illustrations for us from now on. No need to outsource it. It's a big benefit for our company.
Thank you for accommodating my request to not affect my family life.
It's okay. We don't intend to overwork our employees anyway,
Bob said with a smile. And so, I started working for Bob. I only had to draw illustrations, so I didn't need to go into the office. Bob allowed me to work remotely. This way I could work without it interfering with my household duties. I really felt the joy of drawing, something I truly loved. I had enjoyed it as a hobby, but now I felt the joy of being able to work on commissions. It was a fulfilling job. But there were times when my household chores and supporting my husband took up my time. A desire to work as much as I liked on my own started to grow within me. Thankfully, I started earning a decent income. I thought that I could live on my own without any problem. As I was working as usual, I heard the door slam loudly. When I went to the hallway, my husband came to me with rage in his eyes.
You traitor.
I couldn't understand what my husband was saying all of a sudden.
To think that my wife would take my job.
It was then that I realized the reason for my husband's anger. Since I started working with Bob, I began to work with other companies as well. Thanks to Bob's recommendation, I was able to secure contracts smoothly. Most of the companies I contracted with were my husband's business partners. This was my revenge. It must have been frustrating to have jobs taken away by me, the one he looked down on. You have no right to tell me anything. I've just done my job. I have your permission. My husband's eyes filled with rage, but I didn't flinch. Go ahead, hit me if you want. Then I'll call the police. The word police seemed to calm him down a bit.
My company is failing because of you. What are you trying to do?
It has nothing to do with me. I went into the room and brought the divorce papers to my husband. We're not husband and wife anymore.
Don't be ridiculous. You're divorcing me because my company is failing. You're just a gold digger.
I could have divorced you at any time, but I thought now was the right timing. After all, I have a lot of work now and I'm making money.
Hey, wait. Let's talk about the company's future before we talk about divorce. We started this company together, didn't we?
You kicked me out of that company, remember? I have nothing to do with it now, and I'll make sure to get compensation. Michael was irritated, biting his lip.
How greedy can you be? You can't claim compensation when you're the one asking for a divorce.
Do you know how many times you've hit me? And you were having affairs without a care? I have all the evidence. That's enough to claim compensation. I showed him pictures that proved the affair. My husband, who had heard everything, fell to his knees and begged me.
Please, the company's in dire straits. I can't handle compensation or divorce on top of that. Please support me. As soon as people found out that the company was doing badly, they abandoned me. You're the only one who hasn't.
I didn't listen to such a pathetic idea. I left the house with only my work tools and a change of clothes. The next time I came home was when the divorce was finalized to pick up my belongings. My husband's company was making mistakes everywhere and no one wanted to work with him. To pay me compensation, he was spending his days begging. On the other hand, I started living alone.
making a living drawing my favorite illustrations. I've become quite wealthy, but I live without forgetting my integrity, taking my ex-husband as a negative example. What's the point of a husband who won't stand up for his wife? My daughter was being bullied by her mother-in-law, and her husband, my son-in-law, wouldn't even defend her. Instead, he said, "Mother-in-law, this is just part of her education as a wife. If you don't like it, take her back home." So I did just that. I brought my daughter back home with me. I'm a 50-year-old woman named Susie. I live with my only daughter, Maureen. My husband passed away in a car accident when I was young, and Maureen was in kindergarten. Since then, I've raised her on my own. I won't lie, it's been tough. I'm sure there were many days when she felt lonely or upset. But she graduated high school and went on to college. After college, she got a job and became a working adult. Maureen works for a well-established local company that runs various businesses like a bakery, a pharmacy, and real estate. It's a solid company. About a year ago, after working there for 3 years, Maureen told me she had a boyfriend. He was a polite and quiet young man, a sales rep from one of their clients. I was hopeful that he would be a good match for my outgoing daughter, Maureen. "Mom, I've decided to marry Ricky." She told me this with a smile about 3 months ago. I was thrilled that she had finally found happiness and celebrated grandly. We went all out for the wedding and the housewarming. At first, Maureen seemed ecstatic, but as time passed, she sounded less and less cheerful, and it became harder to get in touch with her. I thought it was just typical post-wedding blues, so I decided to wait for her to reach out. Maureen's an adult. It's not my place to meddle, I thought. But I was wrong. "Hey, Maureen looks really worn out. That's not just wedding blues. Are you sure she's okay?" My friend Karen, who lives near Maureen, told me this. "What do you mean?" "Her complexion is terrible. I asked if she was pregnant, but she said no. She looked really sad. Have you heard anything?" Karen's tone was somewhat accusatory. "I haven't been able to reach her lately. She's not answering her phone. You should try contacting her again." Encouraged by Karen's insistence, I called Maureen once more. "Hello, Maureen. It's Mom. Just checking in on you." Maureen answered, but there was only silence. "Maureen, can you hear me? Are you okay?" "Mom, Maureen broke down crying on the phone. "Maureen, are you okay?" "Mom, I'm not okay." Hearing that Maureen wasn't doing well, I regretted not visiting her sooner. I've been so wrapped up in work that I've neglected her. But Maureen always put on a brave face for me, always cheerful. Now she's in tears, saying she's not okay. I held back my emotions and rushed to Maureen's side. "Maureen, Mom's here." "Mom, When I saw Maureen, she looked worn out, a shadow of herself from just a few months ago. "What happened to you?" I hugged Maureen and rubbed her back. Seemingly relieved, Maureen began to speak through her tears and sobs. "Ricky's parents are bullying me. They say I'm uncivilized because I was raised by a single mom, so they're disciplining me." I looked at Maureen's hands. Her once beautiful fingertips were now cracked and sore. "This is terrible." "They tell me to wash dishes with cold water to save hot water. They even tell me to hand wash clothes before using the washing machine." "What?" Apparently, her mother-in-law insists that Maureen hand wash her clothes as a pre-wash. "And I have to mop the floor every morning." Fuming, Maureen added, "What hurts the most is when they badmouth you, Mom." She burst into tears. I was livid and yelled at Ricky's parents. "What are you doing to my daughter?" Ricky's parents came out from the living room. "What's going on?" "Who do you think you are, making a scene in our home?" "You're bullying my daughter under the guise of discipline." They retorted, "This is why we can't deal with women from single-parent homes." "We're just disciplining an uncivilized girl. Your attitude is unacceptable." They began to mock us. What's going on? Ricky came out after hearing the commotion.
Ricky, your wife is so flawed that we're disciplining her, and her unreasonable mother is making a fuss.
Ricky's mom reported to him as if tattling. I confronted Ricky. If you're her husband, don't just stand there. Help Maureen. You're misunderstanding. Maureen is failing as a wife. My parents are just trying to make her presentable. Ricky arrogantly defended his parents. You're a failure as a husband. If you can't protect your own wife, stop this nonsense. I was furious and lunged at Ricky. Ricky retorted, You're taking advantage of my parents' kindness. I did you a favor by marrying a woman from a single-parent home. If you have a problem, take her back with you. With that, he shook off my hand. I lost my balance and fell at the entrance.
Mom, are you okay?
Maureen rushed to my side. I'm fine, Maureen. You don't need to stay here any longer. Get a divorce. When I urged Maureen to divorce, she weakly nodded.
Okay, I understand.
As we were about to leave, Ricky's parents sneered.
You're probably going back to some rundown apartment. Feel free to come back any time.
Yeah, but only if you apologize deeply. Ricky's parents took turns mocking us. I quickly retorted, You're the ones who don't get it. This house isn't yours. Don't get it twisted. What are you talking about? This house was inherited by Maureen from her grandfather, right? What's hers is mine. Ricky insisted it was his, refusing to listen. Actually, inherited property doesn't automatically become the spouse's. That's the law. I pulled out a piece of paper from my bag and showed it to them. It was a copy of the land registry for the house, proving that I was the legal owner. My father, Maureen's grandfather, left this house to me, not directly to Maureen. I've been the one paying the taxes. Ricky and his parents were dumbfounded. I calmly explained that I had gifted them the house as a wedding present, free of rent and taxes.
What? I've never heard about this, Ricky.
I don't know. She's probably bluffing. Ricky and his parents refused to believe us. Listen, you have no right to live here. If you understand, leave. Despite my declaration, they remained defiant. That's your problem. We're staying. You're the one who should leave. Fine. I'll see you in court, I said, taking Maureen with me as we left the house. As we exited, I noticed neighbors gathered, whispering among themselves after hearing the commotion. Among them was my friend Karen.
Are you okay?
Sorry for causing a scene. Karen looked concerned. I'll explain everything later, I said, hugging Maureen as we left. After that, Ricky and his family tried to continue living in the house, but word had spread in the neighborhood. People had noticed Maureen's declining health since her marriage. When it became known that they had bullied Maureen, tried to kick her out, and even attempted to take over the house, they were shunned as a disgraceful family. Living in a small town, word travels fast. It didn't take long for us to hear about Ricky and his family situation through Karen. Their reputation had plummeted, and they were even told not to dispose of their trash at the community dump. Apparently, they fled in the night. Karen told me, chuckling. Within a month of us leaving, Ricky had called my cell phone multiple times. It's your fault we can't live there anymore, because of the harassment. Apologize now. I'm not sure what you're talking about. I brushed him off. Apologize to us, and we'll clear up the misunderstanding with the neighbors. Then we'll forgive you. He still seemed to think they'd done nothing wrong. I was so disgusted that I hung up. A week after the calls, Ricky and his family showed up at my house unannounced. They were stunned when they arrived. Yes, I live in one of the city's most luxurious high-rise apartments. In fact, my late husband ran a company, and I took over as CEO after his passing. Working hard for Maureen's sake, the company grew, and now I can afford to live in a high-rise. Upon discovering this, Ricky and his family immediately changed their tune. We're really sorry. We had no idea you were so well off, Ricky said, forcing a smile.
Yes, it's our fault for not knowing better. If we'd known you lived here, we would have treated you differently,
Ricky's mom added. So you're apologizing because I live here? I asked sarcastically. No, actually, we sold our house to live with Ricky and Maureen, but now we have nowhere to go, Ricky's mom continued. Yes, we wanted to provide a good home for our parents, so we proposed living together, Ricky added. We sold our house for that reason, and now we're stuck in a rundown apartment, Ricky's mom said, feigning tears. Mom, don't cry. So, can you help us out? Could you either give us some financial support or let us live in an empty room in this high-rise? Ricky shamelessly asked for assistance. I put on a smile and said, Remember what you did to my daughter? Even if you've forgotten, I never will. Please leave. What? You're abandoning your own family? Maureen, who had witnessed the whole thing, immediately called the police. The police arrived promptly, found the 3 people, and quickly sent them away. Turns out Maureen had consulted the police several times after her divorce, saying her ex-husband was stalking her, wanting to reconcile. Her ex's family continued to show up at her apartment complex, but the concierge handled it. They've been scraping by in a cheap, run-down 2-bedroom apartment ever since. They squandered the money from selling their house on new furniture during the move, leaving them with almost nothing. Ricky's parents can't adjust to a less luxurious lifestyle and continue to live recklessly. Their son Ricky is worn out from being exploited by his parents. Moreover, the reason for the divorce got out because he used to be a salesman who frequented Maureen's company. As a result, he's been banned from Maureen's company and lost a major client, derailing his career. Even Ricky's parents have started looking for work, realizing the gravity of the situation. But due to their age, skills, and neighborhood gossip, they're struggling to find employment. The jobs they do find don't pay well, and they continue to live in hardship. I decided it would be a waste to leave my father's house vacant, so I've opened it up as a community center for the neighborhood. I occasionally check in to make sure Ricky's family isn't causing trouble. Maureen told me, I'm an adult now, and I wanted to handle my husband myself. I didn't want to worry you, Mom. I've been telling her, it's not shameful to ask for help. The sooner you speak up, the less you'll suffer. So speak up sooner from now on. After the divorce, Maureen has been living in my high-rise apartment and continues to work at the company she's been with since before her marriage. She was downcast when she first came back home, but now she's back to her old self and helps around the house. We plan to live happily together for the foreseeable future. Stop! Don't touch her! While out shopping, I checked the baby monitor app on my phone and saw a strange woman trying to pick up and take away my daughter. There, next to the crib, my husband was blissfully napping. Wake up, you! I was drenched in sweat and couldn't help but shout, even though I knew he couldn't hear me. I had left my 3-month-old daughter in my husband's care while I went shopping. While he had happily agreed to watch her, he ended up taking a nap instead of actually taking care of our daughter. I regretted trusting him in that moment, but it was too late. Frantically, I called my husband while preparing to rush to the police, but then, what caught my eye was an unbelievable sight. I'm Aria, a 35-year-old elementary school teacher. My husband, also 35, is a high school sweetheart who now runs his own business. After years of fertility treatments, we were finally blessed with our daughter, Mary. He would always gaze at her and say, "She's so cute," clearly delighted. Although he never took care of her, I had some time off for parental leave and felt content and happy. Before Mary was born, we had grown apart. My husband was a workaholic, often coming home late and working on his days off. I was also busy, and despite wanting to come home early, would often return after dark due to grading tests and preparing for the next day's lessons. Slowly, his attitude and words towards me became colder.
Sometimes I come home early, and you're not here. There's no dinner, and the house is a mess. What's the point of us being married?
I'm sorry, I've been busy with work.
You're the wife. Act like it. This isn't a relaxing home.
Even though we both work, he thinks housework is my job and never lifts a finger to help. So there I was doing all the cooking and laundry, no matter how tired I was. I refrained from asking to help because I knew he wouldn't budge. I felt emotionally distanced from my husband and was left with a lingering sense of discontent. However, having a child changed my husband. He started to come home early just to see our daughter's face.
Isn't she adorable? She's got a beautiful face, just like me.
You wish. I chuckled. Yet thanks to our daughter, I began to feel that our relationship might be on the mend. Mind you, he was still glued to his phone, constantly checking it. Hey, do you really need to take your phone even to the bathroom and shower?
Well, Work's been going great, and clients keep reaching out.
I know what it's like to bring work home. Just take care of yourself, okay? I was genuinely worried for his health, but I never imagined what would happen next. On a day off, as I was busy with household chores, my husband unexpectedly made a kind offer.
Look, I know you're swamped every day. I'm off today, so why don't I take care of Mary? Go out with your friends, have some tea, and relax.
Really? Thanks. I was pleasantly surprised by his sudden gesture and gladly prepared to enjoy my long-awaited time alone. I felt happy thinking he was returning to the thoughtful man I'd married. Shopping in the bustling downtown area, dressed to the nines, I suddenly found myself worried about our daughter. After all, I hadn't been apart from her for a single moment since she was born. Now is the perfect time to use this. I pulled out my phone and accessed a certain app. You see, I had installed a baby monitor camera in the house for just this kind of moment. The camera's footage and audio get sent directly to my phone in real time. I've told my husband about this camera setup a while ago, but he might have forgotten since he really didn't pay attention. What do we have here? A bit anxious, I check the footage, and am disappointed by what I see. It's great that my usually uninvolved husband agreed to babysit, but it looks like he's dozed off next to our daughter's bed, probably worn out from work. Our daughter, Mary, has been left alone in her crib. Well, he's completely dropped the ball, but the kid seems content, so it's okay for now. Just as I sighed in resignation, I witnessed something shocking. Out of nowhere, a young woman I've never seen before appeared and picked up my daughter. Who are you? Wait, what are you doing with Mary? I panicked and screamed as loudly as I could into the baby monitor toward my snoozing husband. Wake up quick! Someone's taking Mary! Of course he can't hear me and continues to sleep. It looked like the woman was about to take my daughter outside. I was about to rush to call the police while still glued to the live feed when, in the next moment, my husband wakes up and starts chatting with the woman who was holding our daughter, even leaning in and being affectionate. What? What's going on? Do they know each other? My mind was racing, totally thrown off by this unexpected turn. And then, when I heard their conversation, I was even more shocked. I want to make this adorable child mine as soon as possible.
Once the plans go through, my wife will soon be out of the picture. Then we'll have a windfall and can live luxuriously. We can finally be together, Lily.
You're being so nice to your wife, so she doesn't suspect anything, right?
Yeah, begrudgingly. She's nothing compared to you. No charm at all. You're young and beautiful. The only one I love is you, Lily.
Feeling sick to my stomach, I watched my husband flirt shamelessly with another woman. I'd been fooled into thinking he had returned to the caring man I once knew. My husband and Lily were meticulously plotting against me, unaware that I was listening. Thanks for showing me how to target her life. I had no idea such methods even existed. Listening to their unsettling conversation, the woman grinned and showed my husband a small white flower, then began arranging it in a vase. Who is this Lily who seems so intimately involved with my husband? Gaining some composure, I decided to play along and gather evidence. Fortunately, he didn't seem to notice the hidden camera, so I returned home, feigning ignorance. My husband greeted me with a smile as if nothing had happened. You won't be smiling for long. Be prepared. But even with my resolve, I had no clue where to start. Then, an ideal person popped into my head. Emily, my high school friend who loves mysteries. Every time we meet, she enthusiastically talks about detective techniques and methods she learns from books and movies. She might be the one to help. She knows about my husband, too. When I met with Emily and explained the situation, she was all in. Leave it to me. From that point, Emily did some sleuthing and found out Lily worked at my husband's favorite cabaret club. Even more, she interviewed some of the club's patrons. Apparently, Lily had targeted multiple married men before swindling money from them. She's clearly bad news. Meanwhile, I seized the opportunity to check my husband's phone while he was asleep and found his text exchanges with Lily. I see, so that's how it is. It seems my husband had been frequenting Lily's club and trying to woo her, but stopped visiting after our daughter was born. Suddenly, she started texting him frequently saying, "Why don't you come see me? I'm lonely," and lured him in. It seemed like my husband fell for it hook, line, and sinker. From then on, they stopped meeting at cafes and started rendezvousing at hotels. My husband seemed to become increasingly infatuated with Lily. Emily and I decided to collect some evidence and went through my husband's room. We found a stash of hotel receipts and luxury branded bags and jewelry receipts that were likely gifts for Lily. I trembled with anger. I haven't received anything like that from him since we got married. But that was just the tip of the iceberg. I discovered a file that revealed the unexpected reality of my husband's business, and something even more shocking. What is this? I will never forgive him. 2 days later, on a day off, he said,
"I'll watch over Mary today. You go out and do whatever you want."
Hearing his sugar-coated tone, I became certain. So I decided to take him up on his offer. "Thanks, I'll take you up on that and go out. But I'll leave Mary with my mother because she's been saying she wants to see her." I couldn't possibly leave Mary at home, knowing Lily might come over.
"All right, I'll cook dinner tonight, so take your time."
"You're so kind. Thank you." I was both disgusted by his performance and saddened. How wonderful it would have been if this was his true self. After dropping off my daughter with my mother, I went to Emily's house, which was near my parents' home. As we were watching the surveillance camera footage, sure enough, Lily showed up and started doing something shocking in the kitchen with my husband. My faint hope that my husband might change his mind was shattered. In fact, I felt hatred toward him, seeing the grin on his face. 2 hours later, when Emily and I returned home, my husband, who thought he was alone, let out a surprised, "What?" when he saw her. "Why are you so shocked I was with Emily today?" "Long time no see. I tagged along back to your place." My upbeat Emily received a forced smile from my husband, who reluctantly invited her inside. Mary's already asleep, so she'll be spending the night at her grandparents'.
"Ah, I see,"
he replied, clearly distracted by something else. But Emily threw him another curveball. Something smells good. Is it curry for dinner? Mind if I join?"
Well,
My husband stumbled over his words, clearly uncomfortable. Before he could decline, Emily had already sat at the table, so we ended up having dinner together. As I was about to help with the setup, my husband insisted.
"I cooked today. Let me serve it."
He returned with a tray of curry for 3 and set a plate in front of each of us. I seized the moment. "Wow, my curry has a lot of meat. Let me swap plates with you."
"What?"
Before he could say anything, I had already switched our plates. His face turned pale, and he looked utterly helpless. I relished the curry in front of him, while Emily watched with a smile. She didn't try to eat hers, though. After all, who knows if what's on Emily's plate is safe? My husband, however, seemed oblivious to Emily's reactions, his face growing more and more pale. "Why aren't you eating? It'll get cold."
"I'm, full already. Hey, why don't you eat it?"
"Why should I? Are you trying to get me to eat it for some reason?"
"What? No, of course not."
"Then take a bite. You made it yourself after all. I said I don't want to eat it." He clenched his lips and sweated, even though it wasn't hot. "Well then, I'll take this curry as evidence and give it to the police."
"What? Police?"
For a moment he froze, then mustered a feeble voice.
"I just don't feel like eating it because my stomach's off."
"If there's nothing wrong, then you shouldn't mind it being given to the police, right?" At that instant, he slammed the table, about to lunge at me, but then noticed Emily and stopped.
"Police? What are you accusing me of?"
I thrust before him pictures of files documenting his company's poor financial status. "Your company's doing bad, huh? It could go under any day now."
"How did you find that?"
"I found it in your study. Planning to make me the fall guy to save your company. How awful."
"What are you talking about? There's no way I'd do such a thing."
My husband still seemed to be playing dumb. He turned towards Emily and exaggeratedly shrugged his shoulders.
"Listen, Emily, my wife here has been really paranoid lately. I'm actually worried she might be ill. Me trying to kill my own wife? Ridiculous."
"Oh, so you're still pretending, huh?" Without waiting for his response, I pulled out my smartphone and began to play the footage recorded from the surveillance camera. There he was, my husband and Lily, both beaming as they began to make curry together. They took some of the curry from the large pot and transferred it into a smaller one.
into which they added the juice of a white flower known for its toxic properties. Their entire conversation about trying to get rid of me had been perfectly captured as well. "And look what I found in your study," I said, throwing onto the table a $100,000 life insurance policy taken out on me. "My life seems to be quite valuable, doesn't it?" This is... I was hoping you'd have second thoughts. But too bad. I have all the evidence I need, so it's over to the police now." His eyes widened and his lips trembled, finally seeming to accept that he couldn't deceive me any longer. He broke down and deeply apologized. "I'm sorry. It was a momentary lapse. Forgive me." "Why would I? You cheated on me and even plotted to kill me." "I was influenced by Lily. I never really intended to. And things at work haven't been going well, so I just..." "It's too late. I've already reported you to the police. They should be here soon." "Please wait. I'll do whatever you say. Just don't call the police." In truth, I had secretly reported him to the police while he was serving the curry. If he had had second thoughts and decided not to go through with poisoning me, I might have reconsidered calling the cops. That thought was still lingering in my mind. Unfortunately, my husband chose his affair and money over me. As he was being led away by the police, he pathetically cried out, "I did nothing wrong. Help me." Later, he was found guilty of conspiring with Lily to take my life. Once this became public, his company went under. After the divorce, my daughter and I started living together. I demanded $30,000 in settlement money and $150,000 in child support from my ex-husband during the divorce proceedings. I hope he truly learns that you can't ever justify endangering someone's life for money while he's behind bars. As for my father-in-law and mother-in-law, they apologized for the pain they caused me and agreed to pay the settlement and child support in place of my husband. They promised to make sure he repays them once he's out. I also demanded $20,000 from Lily during the divorce proceedings, and I intend to make sure she pays up. Both my ex-husband and Lily face a long time behind bars and a grim future even if they get out. I plan to return to work when my adorable daughter turns 1. We'll face the future together, doing our best every step of the way.
Some people live so lavishly, even without kids. It's tough to make a living, especially when you're not even having kids.
I want a child too. Yet my husband, my father-in-law, and my mother-in-law are relentless, oblivious to my desperation and sadness. My husband looks at me as if he's disappointed. I can't help but blame myself for not being able to conceive. My name is Emily. I'm a 35-year-old homemaker. My husband is also 35 and works a corporate job. We've been married for 5 years and have been unable to have kids. This has been a burden on me for a long time.
Emily, still no kids?
Yes, I'm sorry.
It's getting late. While your father-in-law is still the head doctor, we need our grandkids to be doctors. We have our needs too.
3 months into our marriage, my mother-in-law first said this to me. Ever since her words became routine, and I've been stressing and blaming myself. My husband's parents run a hospital. His father is the head doctor, and his sister is the deputy. It's a fairly large hospital. As the eldest son, my husband wanted to be a doctor too. However, he couldn't get into med school due to poor grades. He seems to insist that our child must become a doctor and inherit the hospital.
Until you're 35.
What are you talking about?
You have until you're 35 to have a kid. That's the deal.
But it's not something that can be achieved just by trying. My husband, like my mother-in-law, set a deadline, which makes me anxious.
Our future child must be a doctor. Otherwise, there's no benefit for me.
According to my husband, his sister will inevitably take over once his dad retires. Then our child will become a doctor and take the seat of the third-generation head doctor. That's the plan. Truth is, his sister has a daughter in middle school who excels in studies and dreams of becoming a doctor like her mom. My father-in-law adores her. So there's already a candidate to inherit the hospital. Although it's not like there's no successors, my husband seems to have different thoughts. If this continues, his sister will become the second-generation head doctor, but he cannot stand the thought of letting her daughter inherit after that. And agreeing with him is my mother-in-law. She adores my husband and feels sorry that he couldn't become a doctor. That's why she keeps nagging me to have a child soon. He couldn't become a doctor due to his lack of aptitude. Holding on to that dream for their grandchild seems misguided. Amid these conflicting intentions, I ended up being suspected of infertility 2 years into our marriage and had to see a specialist. Since my father-in-law's hospital didn't offer the service, my sister-in-law introduced me to a friend who's a doctor. Upon returning from my first consultation, my mother-in-law immediately called. "What's the issue? Do you have some sort of defect?" I was stunned by her bluntness, but reminded myself that she's always straightforward, and answered, "No, they didn't say it was a flaw, but stress could be a factor. They recommend taking it easy." Then, from the other side of the phone, I hear my father-in-law shouting,
"Bring those test results here now."
"So quit your job and laze around the house all day. What stress could you possibly have?" "I'm sorry." I had to listen to my mother-in-law's lectures for a while longer before hanging up. At that moment, I didn't realize I'd have to go through many more conversations like this. My struggle with not being able to conceive started affecting my husband too. He began finding faults in everything I did.
"So you've been home all day, just watching TV?"
"I've been doing chores."
"Really? Then why is there so much dust everywhere?"
He snapped, wiping surfaces to show me the dust. "All right, I might have missed a few spots. I'll be more careful."
"What's your problem? I'm providing for you, aren't I?"
My husband's irritation escalated quickly, and I usually chose to stay silent to avoid fights. Then he leaned in and said,
"Just hurry up and have a baby,"
before storming off. Life at home was growing more and more strained. While facing the ongoing pressure to have children from my husband and mother-in-law, I started wondering if the problem might actually be with him. Not that I was suspicious, but if I'm healthy, it's reasonable to consider whether he might be the issue. However, both he and my mother-in-law dismissed the idea outright. One day, I mustered the courage to discuss it with him. "Don't you think we should get checked? I don't seem to have any issues. What about you?"
"What are you implying? That I'm the reason we can't have kids?"
"I'm not accusing you of anything, but if it's an issue, we need to treat it, right?"
"You're joking. There's no way I'm the problem."
He stormed off, furious. I tried bringing it up in different ways, asking him to consider testing, but he was stuck on blaming me. I couldn't push it further, and the problem remained unresolved. Then, a shocking event unfolded. I found out my husband was cheating. He was coming home late every day, looking uneasy and restless. I had suspicions, but didn't plan on gathering evidence. At that point, love might have already been missing from our relationship. One day, my husband and I visited his parents' house. As always, I felt overwhelmed by my mother-in-law's nagging about having kids and my father-in-law's comments suggesting we should check for fertility issues. Then, my husband dropped a bombshell.
"You know, I might have a kid with someone else. If that happens, I won't need you."
His mother chimed in. "At this point, I don't care who has David's child. Anyone will do." They both laughed, uproariously. I felt my patience nearing its end. Time passed aimlessly as my husband continued his affairs with his mother's approval. Then I got a message from my sister-in-law saying she was in the area. We met up at a local cafe, and she had surprising advice for me. "Emily, why not go back to work?" "I'd love to, but you know they'd be against it. You haven't been able to have kids even as a homemaker. Plus, you have a nursing degree, so why not use it?" I always found great fulfillment in my work as a nurse. My sister-in-law had watched me suffer quietly and said that enough was enough with my in-laws. "You're becoming their stress ball," she said, pushing me to talk to my husband about returning to my nursing job. However, he flat out refused.
"What if you get pregnant? You'll just quit, causing trouble for everyone,"
he argued, making it sound like my only job was to bear children. I snapped back. "What about you? You haven't even checked if you're the issue, blaming everything on me."
"Shut up. It's all your fault."
5 years into the marriage, my love for my husband had utterly evaporated. When we got divorced, my mother-in-law said, "You wasted 5 years of our lives. You couldn't even give us a grandchild." I stood my ground. Are you sure it's all my fault? David never took any tests. I looked her straight in the eye and declared, I will have a child. 2 years have passed since then. I returned to my nursing career and threw myself into my work to forget those painful 5 years of marriage. I'm currently working at a specialized clinic for women with fertility issues, the very same place my sister-in-law introduced me to when I was married. I currently work at a fertility clinic, the same one my sister-in-law introduced me to when I was struggling with fertility. Life had finally settled down, and I decided to catch up with my high school friends via email. I had a friend returning from overseas work in New York, so we all agreed to meet up. I wasn't exactly free to move around, but neither were my friends, so I took the lead in planning a get-together that wouldn't be a burden for anyone. Thanks to my supportive family, I managed to make it to the restaurant we agreed upon, despite the busy preparations. In a private room at the restaurant, we all had a great time catching up and reminiscing. After a while, I excused myself saying, I'll be right back, and left the room. The restaurant was bustling, filled with lively conversations. Among the chatter, it was easy to pick out a familiar voice. Long time no see, I said, approaching a table for 7. All eyes at the table turned toward me. Among them was a face that couldn't hide its surprise.
What are you doing here?
My ex-husband David looked at the twins I was holding, and his face turned to one of shock. His parents, sitting across from him, were equally shocked. Yes, I had remarried after divorcing David, and was now a mother of twins.
What's the meaning of this? Interrupting our meal? How rude!
My former sister-in-law, sitting next to my former mother-in-law, continued eating as if nothing had happened. I told you during the divorce, didn't I? I wanted to show you my adorable babies.
Did you now?
Don't play dumb. I was bullied for being the wife who couldn't get pregnant by both David and you.
That's a baseless accusation.
Really? You said it was my fault. You said it was all my fault for not being able to have kids. Yet you never even got yourself tested. David averted his eyes and clenched his fists on the table. And you threatened to have a child with someone else. Your mother even said it didn't matter who gave birth, remember? As I said this, a few of my friends approached and said,
David, long time no see. We've heard a lot from Emily. You've changed a lot since high school, haven't you?
David and I were high school classmates, so the friends I was meeting today were also his classmates. The ones looking stunned were a modest-looking woman sitting next to my ex-husband, and people who seemed to be his parents. I'm sorry for interrupting. Were you announcing your marriage? If so, let me give you some advice as your senior in this household. My ex-husband and his mother looked shocked and tried to stop me. Ignoring them, I raised my voice and said to the woman, Can you have kids? If you don't have them soon, you'll be bullied by these two, you know? The woman looked instantly uneasy and exchanged glances with her parents. Then my former sister-in-law, who had been quietly eating, spoke up.
If you're worried, you should back out. What she said is true. It's embarrassing, but that's how our family is.
What are you talking about, sis?
You're not after Emily's child, are you? You're after Dad's position as the hospital director, right?
Let's talk about that later.
Who says the director has to be a doctor? I'm stepping down, so go ahead.
With that, she placed her napkin on the table and said,
I've been invited by a friend who's a doctor. Why don't you come to our fertility clinic?
Everyone was speechless at her words. Yes, my former sister-in-law had always supported me behind the scenes. She had always felt uncomfortable with how her parents ran the hospital, their attitude towards patients, and my brother's ambitions. She even helped me with this revenge. She was the one who told me about the restaurant and my ex-husband's pre-wedding meeting. Unable to take it anymore, my ex-husband's girlfriend left the scene with her parents. My ex-husband tried to chase after her and smooth things over, but was yelled at by her father, collapsed on the spot, and started crying. Seeing this, my former mother-in-law also started crying, and my father-in-law couldn't stop shaking. Afterward, my former sister-in-law officially resigned from my ex-father-in-law's hospital.
You
came to work as a doctor at the fertility clinic where I work. After she left, the number of patients at my father-in-law's hospital plummeted, partly because she was well-liked and partly because of the restaurant incident. My ex-husband quit his job and tried to turn the business around, but apparently it was pointless. With my former sister-in-law, who was the deputy director, gone, and my ex-husband's engagement broken off, the future of the hospital looked bleak. It's only a matter of time before it changes hands. As for my ex-husband, he seems to be spending his days tormented by emptiness, having lost both his girlfriend and his job, and watching the declining hospital with his parents. As for me, I'm living the happiest life, busy with my twin babies, and still able to work in my calling as a nurse, alongside my husband, who's also a nurse.